What's going on, Lions fans? Welcome to the Pride of Detroit YouTube channel. I'm your host, Miko, joined by my guy, Morgan Cannon. And today we are here to talk, unfortunately, more injury news. Morgan, today is the first day as the Lions continue to get ready for the Green Bay Packers for another Thursday night game. And a lot of talk is being had today about the injury report that comes out, right? Obviously, the Lions have had a number of different injuries pop up, specifically more so on the defensive end. They lose Malcolm Rodriguez after their game against the Bears. They also lose Mekhi Wingo. Both of those guys are out for the season. And that definitely has a lot of people just kind of like concerned at this point. The Lions also didn't have Carlton Davis against the Bears, but we'll get to him in a minute. And so coming into Monday, there was a lot of questions on like, okay, what is this injury report going to look like? Because Josh Pascal went down in that game with an injury. Levi Onwuzurike went down with an injury in that game. There was talk coming out of that game that DJ Reader was a little banged up. We definitely have to talk about those things. But on the back end of that, Brad Holmes has been busy all holiday weekend because he went out there and basically was grabbing talent from wherever he could. It was like it was Black Friday shopping for Brad Holmes, and he was just grabbing talent wherever he could. And I think he came away with some really good pieces. But first and foremost, when you got to look at the injury reports today, biggest takeaways, anything that you're concerned about?
Well, the obvious thing is D-line depth, right? Like, that's pretty concerning. Just with everyone, you just lost Wingo, per Dan Campbell, he did say, seems like Pascal and Levi are both day-to-day. So that's kind of good news. But he did say he's still, this was Saturday, he said that he doesn't not real optimistic about either one of them playing. So that's something to keep in mind. DJ Reader, shout out to Justin Rogers, Detroit Football Network. Go check out his content. It's amazing. He said, this was a tweet at the game after the game. Reader banged up his shoulder in the game, told me he was fine while chatting in the locker room after the contest. Actually, he tweeted this today, I guess, on Monday. So, yeah, that's concerning because DJ Reader's been big, man. Him and Aleem, like for everything going on, like everyone's getting hurt around them. But Aleem, well, Levi too. Levi's playing really well. But Aleem and DJ Reader have both been balling, like taking their games to like becoming 3 down. Aleem's really a 3 down threat now, like rushing the passer, stud against the run. And then DJ Reader flashed his pass rushing chops during the win against the Bears on Thanksgiving. So yeah, hopefully DJ Reader's just, I'm assuming, hoping, knock on wood, it's just like some veteran rest, right? Like just a day to get right because it's another short week.
So. Yeah, he's one of those players that they've done this with before where, like, again, he doesn't practice on Monday, but then he'll be out there on Tuesday either as a full participant or even as a limited participant. Again, with it being a short week, he's one of the players that I look at and expect to be a full participant come tomorrow. The biggest concern for me right now is Taylor Decker at this point, because this would be the second week that Taylor would possibly miss with his knee injury and going into Green Bay, having to deal with Rashawn Gary. Him and Taylor Decker have had their battles. Rashawn has typically come out on top in those situations. He's been a handful for Taylor Decker to deal with, but you would still rather have him out there than Dan Skipper and not have to allocate other resources to being able to stop Rashawn Gary in that situation. So he's the other player that I'm going to be keeping an eye on because, again, he was a no practice for today, along with Pascal, Onwuzurike, and Reader. On the good news, though, we did get Carlton Davis back as a limited participant today in practice, which is at least a good sign going into this game against the Packers. I said, I think it was going into the Bears game, like if we could get Carlton Davis back at least for one of these 2 games coming up, whether it was the Bears game or the Packers game, I was going to feel really good about the defense's performance. They didn't get him for the Bears game. The defense still played really well. The secondary still like really held it down. With Terrion Arnold pretty much doing a lot of the heavy lifting, and then Kendall Vildor having a very good game as well. But getting him back for this Green Bay game could be just as huge because Green Bay has a number of weapons that they can hurt you with, and you would much rather have Carlton Davis out there than having to, again, try to roll the dice with Kendall Vildor again.
Yeah, getting Carlton back would be huge. And I'm with you on – so Decker – it seems like it's another day-to-day situation, but I think they're going to be cautious because they want him ready for like January football and hopefully February football, just because Decker's, I think he's 31 off the top. I don't have it over here on my other monitor, but he's, been through some injuries. And to be fair to him, Rashawn Gary is a problem. Like that man makes a lot of good tackles in this league look pretty bad at times. So I'm not going to kill Taylor for that. Penei Sewell, on the other hand, but I think they're going to keep. I think they'll keep Gary away from Sewell because why would you? But yeah, I really hope Decker can go, man, because then that just that opens things up, like you said, Miko, like offensively for the Lions. If Skipper's over there, then that's something Ben Johnson always has to keep, honestly, front of mind. Do I need to have a tight end in line over there? Do I need to send it back to Chip, or just
Yeah.
slide the protection that way and roll Goff away from Gary? So there's ways to work around it, but it's definitely not ideal.
Yeah, 100%. And then, like we said, Carlton Davis, limited participant today. Also, Emmanuel Mosley, full participant today. So, again, you're getting more secondary help, which is nice because I think Emmanuel Mosley is someone that, whether he needs to step in and play as a starting role or just has depth out there, is something that the Lions can benefit from greatly. Obviously, he has that versatility of being able to play inside or play outside. Even though Amik has been playing great these last couple weeks, it's still just nice to have an additional body in the secondary right now. With that said, like I was saying earlier, Brad Holmes was busy over the holiday break. He went out and got 4 players to kind of help shore up this defense, 3 of which were signed to the active roster. One got put over to the practice squad, but is expected to be elevated before Thursday's game. Those players being Quan Alexander, the linebacker formerly with the Denver Broncos, but probably the most well known for his time with New Orleans Saints, and he was with the Bucks.
Mm.
And he was with the 49ers, I want to say. He's been a bit of a journeyman.
Yeah, it might have been that. Yeah, I remember Bucks the most. Bucks and Saints.
Yeah. So obviously there's some familiarity there with him and Aaron Glenn and the defense that the Lions probably operate in that sense. They went out and got 2 defensive linemen, Jonah Williams and Miles Adams, both a little bit on the tweener side, right? The ability to play inside and play outside. Jonah Williams probably has had more experience in terms of playing time. He played a lot last season for the Rams. Didn't have like a crazy season, but at least got to go out there and was like starting, playing heavy snaps. Finished the season with, I believe, 2 sacks. So someone that can go out there, I believe he's like 6'5", 278, like big guy, go out there that can play that big end spot. That like, Levi was going out there and doing and things with that situation. So another body that you can kind of roll out there. And then Miles Adams, not as much playing experience, but again, someone that can play the inside outside. He's about like 6'2", 290. So it's a little bit shorter, but a little bit of a stockier build. And then the other big name that dropped yesterday, Morgan, that I think has got a lot of Lions fans at least excited about the possibility of what he can do on the field, is former All-Pro safety Jamal Adams, who a lot of people are already saying like expect to see a lot of Jamal Adams out there at the hybrid linebacker spot.
Yeah, and someone had sent me a message when it first happened. They're like, does this mean Brian Branch is going to go back to nickel? And I'm like, whoa, 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 whoa. I was like, no, no, no. I gave him a hard time. But yeah, no. So in my opinion, when they signed Jamal Adams, I was like, okay, this is a response to not having Germ and now not having Malcolm Rodriguez, because the days of Jamal Adams being a 3-down safety are definitely probably over. I shouldn't say definitely. I don't want to be mean, but he can make some plays. He's always been good around the line of scrimmage, man. Like was always his forte, even during his prime. So, think of him as like a Jalen Reeves-Maben replacement, and he could be on the field pretty quickly too, but with Malcolm down, be that other linebacker next to Jack in passing situations, because he can sift through, the rubble, like in run fits. He can get downhill and stick his shoulder into a guard's chest. Like, he's physical. So
yeah,
really, man, like all these additions, like I'm happy for all of them. And this is what your pro personnel department does under Brad Holmes. So when you hear like the pro personnel people, that's what they're talking about. They're the ones that scout guys that are already in the league so they can have a short list of like, snap, we have 8 zillion injuries and we need to figure something out, right?
yeah.
So this is exactly what that department, a big core of what that department does. And Brad Holmes is good at this. So at the end of the day, really, they just need to be able to function within the defense. It's not as a Darius Smith where like, hey, you're going to come over and you need to be an impact performer for us, because that's, this is more like, can you guys come in and fill the Mekhi Wingo snaps, the Jalen Reeves-Maben, and some of the Malcolm Rodriguez snaps. So that's really what it's about to me. What about you? What do you think, Miko?
Yeah, I think the Malcolm snaps are probably the biggest need that they're trying to fill right now. Right? You look at what these linebackers are doing. Obviously, like Malcolm came in initially to fill in for Derek Barnes when he first got hurt, and then Alex Anzalone got hurt, and so he slid over and started picking up some of the slack that Alex had pretty much left void, along with Jack, right? Like, and Jack has been phenomenal this, all season, honestly, but definitely has picked it up in the few weeks when Alex has been down. But I think they look at that linebacker spot and say, listen, like, Jack's still going to continue to do a lot of the heavy lifting as the Mike linebacker, but we do need like the stuff that Malcolm and Alex were doing. Like we need that picked up. And I think that's where you see Quan Alexander and Jamal Adams kind of split the responsibilities in that situation. Like I wouldn't be surprised if Quan is the guy that you see out there on like first and second down. I'm not sure like how good he is in coverage, but I wouldn't be surprised if that's the guy you see out there on first and second down on a lot of run fits. And then the minute they want to get, kind of crazy on some of their blitz schemes and things like that, or they just want someone out there with better coverage skills, that's when you see Jamal Adams go out there, somebody that they can have like line up man to man, someone that they can send on blitzes and things of that nature, and not be so worried about, again, trying to have Jack do too much on Sundays or in this case, Thursday night.
These dang Thursday games. I'm glad it's our last one, man. But yeah, I'm right there with you. Like Quan Alexander is a really good player, especially in this scheme. Like you mentioned earlier, knows Aaron Glenn's scheme, what he expects out of him in the defense. And since Aaron Glenn has got here, man, he's been good at just making do with the ingredients that he has. Like it helps to have some fine ingredients, some like high end ingredients like the Hutchinsons of the world and the Brian Branches and so on, and the Aleems, and Jack Campbell, man, I'm so happy about his play. But yeah, he's going to find a way and personnel groupings and ways to utilize these guys, because the tape is there. And at the end of the day, to stay competitive, to keep this defense, I don't know if they're going to keep it where it's been, because it's been at a really high level for a while now. But
yeah,
hopefully it doesn't fall off too much. And I still think this team is still very much a contender moving forward.
Well, and I think it was interesting when like Aaron Glenn got to talk to the media today, and they were asking him essentially about that. Like, you have all these new players coming in. Like, how do you get everybody up to speed in terms of playbook? And he's like, it's not really about the playbook. It's more about play style. And so I think like you look at the guys that they got, and these guys already have a certain play style that matches up with the Lions like to do. So you get a guy like Quan Alexander, who, by the way, is only 2 seasons removed away from like his last like probably meaningful season when he played for the Jets. Started 12 games, still had 69 tackles. Like he went out there and was still impactful. Went to Pittsburgh last year, had played more of a reserve role, definitely dealt with some injuries as well. And then obviously was on, the Broncos practice squad this year. But he's still someone, again, only 30 years old, still has a good amount of tread on the tires as a linebacker, because we know linebackers don't usually start teetering off until like mid 30s for whatever reason, especially like when it comes down to just run defense. Like you can find linebackers that can go out there and stuff up the run game as long as they're willing to be physical. So I think Quan can at least easily do that aspect of it. You look at someone like Jamal Adams, again, only a couple seasons removed from for him as well, from like the last time he was having an impact out there in Seattle. With him, it's more so just like injuries. Like, can you keep him healthy? And at this point, it's honestly like, can you keep Jamal Adams healthy enough until Iffy's finally right? Because I think that was the first thought that I had when they signed Jamal Adams, is like, if he's still not close to even being ready to come out there and do what they're essentially wanting to do. Because I think once he's healthy, that's where you'll see like the same type of 3 safety look. Because we forget, or I think some people forget, if he's 6'3", like 6'3", about good 210, like he's a big kid that can go out there and play close to the line of scrimmage as well, at the very least on third down. So those 2 guys, I think, like, they're the guys that have the most experience in the league. They already have a certain defined play style that is going to work for what the Lions need them to do. When you talk about Jonah Williams and Miles Adams, I think that's where it gets to what you were saying. Like, these are the guys that you're expecting to just kind of fill in. Like, Jonah might play a lot because I think he fills the Pascal role. But he has the track record. Last year and the year before, he was playing heavy snaps for the Rams. So it's like, that he can go out there and do that. The only reason that he probably wasn't on the Rams active roster this year, they went out there and drafted Jared Verse and Brendan Fisk. Like they got a lot of like bodies at the edge position. So yeah, I think he's somebody that you'll see play a lot of and take a lot of, Pascal snaps. And then, yeah, Miles Adams is the guy that's going to fill in for Mekhi Wingo and be the guy that rotates in for Reader and Aleem and helps give them a break while he goes out there and plays a couple snaps.
Yeah, that's what we mentioned the last video we did. Sometimes like Aleem's balling, but you want to, like, if you could take 8 to 10 snaps or something along those lines off his plate, then you get a more juiced up Aleem McNeil for the snaps that he is out there. Because I think he was at like 54 which is like 94% of the snaps last game.
Yeah.
And that's really high for a dude who weighs 315, 320 pounds, you know?
Yeah,
So
that's taking on double teams and all of those types of things. And
yeah,
so
it's tiring,
with
man.
yeah, so with those guys, like, and you get obviously you have Broderick back now, like it's really just getting those guys all on the same page of like, okay, this is what we want to do on first and second down, which is essentially like, hey, we are hyper focused on stopping the run when it comes down to every one of these games. So again, occupy space, get off your blocks when you can, contain the edge. If you're Jonah Williams, like those types of things, like you're just trying to make sure that guys understand what you're expecting them to do. You and I talked about this, I think it was a couple weeks ago when it came down to like defensive play calls. Like defensive play calls are for the most part fairly simple. Like you're playing man, you're playing cover two, you're playing cover three, and then every once in a while you may play like cover four, cover six, like something crazy, but it's not as like crazy as what like people see in Madden. Like the schemes are usually fairly simple. And unless you're on the defensive line where you may have to do a couple stunts here and there, you kind of know what you're expected to do.
Yeah, and that's why you see, like, especially veterans, right? Like, it's different for rookies. You got to get up to speed. The concepts might be different. There might be different, like, there's different installs on like a week to week basis. But yeah, 100%. Like the meat and potatoes is what it is. If you think about it that way. Like David Long has come in and played well alongside Jack Campbell. That's another one we forgot to mention, but another one who's going to continue playing snaps because he's been productive. He's getting
Yeah.
downhill. He loves to hit people. But yeah, they were able to plug him in and, get him going. So that's kind of what I anticipate from some of these guys like Quan Alexander, Jonah Williams. And then defensive line, like some of that is like just playing with guys, like learning how, like Zadarius was already better this week after, the first week. He was already just more productive, and you could tell he knew what Aleem and DJ Reader and these guys were running, Pashkal when he was healthy, what they wanted. And because you got to rush as a unit. That's such a big thing on the defensive line. But like you talked about, Jonah Williams has experience, so I'm fairly confident he's just going to be able to slide in there and be a part of the rotation.
100%. So like I think there's a lot of excitement. I understand if there's still some concern by people that like, hey, the Lions are having like a number of injuries on the defense. The national media is saying it. Obviously, you have some of the fans that are questioning it too. Like, how long can this defense sustain this? And I think they can sustain it as long as guys continue to execute at a high level, right? Like as long as you continue to have guys do their job, execute where they're supposed to execute, and the offense can start, getting back to basically executing at a high clip like they were early in the season, I think everything will be fine. It may not look as pretty as it was like the last few weeks, but I think they're still talented enough as a roster to continue to win the next few weeks as guys continue to get healthy and as they continue to try to make that push to lock up the number one seed in the NFC, which is kind of the next thing that I wanted to talk about because coming out of this week, like we were definitely hoping like, okay, the Eagles have a tough matchup against the Ravens. The Vikings have an underrated matchup against the Cardinals. Like that game could have went either way. And the Cardinals Vikings game definitely came down to the wire, definitely came down to like a last minute drive. And Minnesota was able to get out of that with a win. And then things just went from bad to worse for the Ravens in their matchup against the Eagles. But Morgan, when you look at the NFC, and we talked about this before, but like how much should Lions fans be sweating at this point when it comes down to locking up that number one seed spot?
First of all, I want to say thanks a lot, Justin Tucker. Thanks a lot,
Right?
buddy. I don't like you, bud. I don't. That was rough to watch. You know what I'm saying? Because it it was brutal. I'm like, oh man, he's going through it. But also, I still remember what you did last time you were here.
I was gonna say, like, I saw Jeremy post something similar where it's like it's more traumatic seeing him miss kicks when we remember the last time he was in Detroit and it felt like he was hitting everything.
Yeah, not to mention he's done it to us multiple times over the course of the years. Like I remember another one like 10 plus years ago where he did that on primetime too. So, but yeah, so for the Lions fans that are already freaking out, I encourage you to breathe a little bit, man. Like, yeah, it'd be nice if the NFC North was like wrapped up and we played in one of these divisions where there's only one good team. But that's just not the case. And at the end of the day, they still control their own destiny, right? So they have essentially a 2-game lead on the Vikings because they're a game ahead of them, and then they own the tiebreaker right now. Week 18, obviously outstanding. The Eagles, I wanted to say, I looked it up. They don't have a conference. They have the one conference loss. The Eagles have 2. So that's something to keep in mind too. Like the Lions only have the 1 loss. Ideally, I would say if the Lions were going to lose a game the rest of the way, if they had to, I'd probably go with the Bills just so it's not a conference loss. That's a little more palatable. Josh Allen's playing like an alien, but winning it would be cool too. So that's what I would say to Lions fans. Like, yes, they're right on our heels, but they still control their own destiny. The next couple games probably going to be pretty tough, but I think the Vikings are going to slip up, man. I think that team keeps getting lucky. They got out by the skin of their teeth against the Cardinals in week 13. So I'm really just not really. I think they're going to lose a couple games. The Eagles look legit. They wore down again. It helped that Justin Tucker sucked, respectfully, but yeah, they wore down the Baltimore defense, and then just their defense made enough plays to get the win. But I was hoping they would lose, to be honest with you.
Yeah, and this is the thing. I think I walked away I was much more impressed with the Eagles defense than I was with the Eagles offense.
Yeah.
And again, I don't mean to say that in a disrespectful manner. I just mean like in terms of watching them on the field, I was much more impressed with like how the defense was disrupting what Baltimore was trying to do on the offensive end. Lamar Jackson wasn't given as many lanes to just kind of run around and, gash them for over 100 yards rushing and things like that. He got his runs here and there, but it wasn't like on a consistent basis. And so, yeah, I'm right there with you with the Eagles where it's like, hey, that's a real threat. With that said, they still have to go and play Pittsburgh, and Pittsburgh right now, it's like, which Pittsburgh team are you going to get? Right? Are you going to get the team that we just saw this past weekend that played the Cincinnati Bengals and put up 40 on them? Or do you get the Pittsburgh Steelers team that lost a tough one to the Browns in the snow? Like it's really like a toss up because that defense in Pittsburgh can get after you in a way that the Ravens kind of haven't been this year, right? And they're a little bit more physical on the defensive end compared to what Baltimore has been able to put up in their recent games. And so they have two tough games on their schedule in that regard. As far as Pittsburgh, I also think the Commanders could be another tough game because division games are just tough. Like it works out that way. We all saw that on Thursday with the Lions and the Bears. And yeah, I'm right there with you with Minnesota. Like whether they lose to anyone else on their schedule or they just lose to us in week 18, like I'm not overly concerned at this point. The Vikings definitely don't look as dangerous as they did early in the season. And it's primarily because like their offense just isn't clicking as well as it was early in the season. And that's the thing that's like really odd.
Yeah, and their defense has kind of taken a couple steps back. They're not this like doomsday unit people were touting them to be at the beginning of the year. Mm-hmm. So I'm just really not seeing it. But the Eagles, yeah, I want to see. So they got the Panthers coming up on the 8th and then the Steelers on the 15th after that. So the Steelers, excuse me, I think will be a pretty good test because they can stop the run. So that'll be a good one. And like you said, Baltimore is just that defense isn't what it's been in years past this year. That's kind of one of their issues. But yeah, I don't anticipate the Eagles winning out. If I had to like put odds, I would give the Lions better odds to win out than I would the Eagles. And I'm not positive the Lions are going to win out either.
Yeah, that Buffalo game is going to be tough.
Yeah, the Buffalo game. And then there's a bunch of division games. Like you said, Miko, like the Commanders could beat the Eagles. Shoot, the Cowboys, that could be weird. Like we see weird stuff.
No, I was going to say like, yeah.
You know what I mean? It's like it happened this past weekend. So Giants, maybe not. I don't know. Probably not though. But yeah.
No. So the Giants win. Something went horribly wrong.
That terribly wrong. Might need to phone it home. Yeah, but I'm right there with you. I'll just tell people like kind of approach it. If you find yourself getting anxiety about all this, approach it like the team does, just 1 week at a time. That's what I had to tell my friend Sweta earlier today. She was like, I was like, just one game at a time.
And I'll also echo something that I saw Jeremy say earlier today on Twitter, if you haven't seen it. But someone was kind of echoing that question of like, well, what if they don't get the number 1 seed? And what if they end up having to play on the road and this, that, and the other? And it's like, this team has played great on the road this season.
Hell yeah, man. They haven't lost a game
on the road yet this season. So it's like, this team is very much comfortable doing that too. And the worst case scenario is that you have to go to Philly, right? Like that's the worst case scenario is like if you get into the playoffs and you have to play a team on the road, like I don't think the Lions drop below the 2 seed as long as like Jared Goff is healthy. Like I don't think they drop further than that, right? And so if that's the case, you're not playing another like outdoor stadium that like you have to really be, yeah, because even if you had to play the Commanders have to come to you.
Yep. I'm not tripping, man. Even if they do got to go outdoors, this team runs the snot out of the football, man. I'm just not really tripping about it. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah,
if they gotta go to Philly, just imagine Penei Sewell walking in that all white. All right, Lions are wearing all white, and the Philly fans are saying crazy things to this man. And little do they know, they're just activating like Samoan Superman. Like, please do that. You know what I'm
Well, I was
saying?
gonna say
Like,
like it's gonna be a Penei it's gonna be a Penei Sewell Knuckles game because like
yeah,
David Montgomery is going to eat that game.
yeah, bro. Like the Eagles are like the Eagles fans. I stepped in it one time. I'm trying not to use Twitter anymore. I'm trying to use Blue Sky. Follow us there. This is better. But I didn't even tweet at Eagles. I just literally said Eagles, and I was like, I don't really see why Eagles fans think they're just gonna run the Lions because yeah, like the Eagles run the ball really well, and that's about it offensively. Like they threw the ball. I think it was 7 times in the second half against the Ravens. 7. So like that's
Yeah.
a one trick show, man. I don't think you're going to be able to do that when the Lions can just pin their stuff back and get after you on the against the run. What were you going to
Well,
say?
especially when that's going to be the focus, right? And again,
Yeah,
not that's nothing against Saquon because Saquon is an MVP candidate and
no
arguably
doubt.
could be the MVP frontrunner, especially after the game he just had against the Ravens. But it does. It makes for a very interesting like NFC matchup if both teams can meet in the NFC championship because I think that would be the two best teams in the NFC. Again, no disrespect to the Vikings necessarily. It's just I think enough people have seen the cracks in that team, and any cracks that people point out in the Lions is more so related to injury, less than and not necessarily to like, oh, they don't execute.
Yep. Agreed. Yeah, exactly. And the Eagles had their struggles earlier in the year, like you mentioned. So they're playing well now, but I want to see them do it against, they got some quality wins. Like beating the Ravens is nothing to slouch at. I'm just saying, I'm not convinced that people are like, oh, they're the best team in the NFC now. Like, calm down.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think even in that win against the Ravens, I don't feel like they dogged them. You know what I mean? Like it just felt
Justin
like
Tucker.
I was gonna say it just felt like the Ravens were never capitalizing on getting into scoring position. And again, field goals do get you beat first and foremost. Like let's not ignore the fact that they weren't converting on third down, but
No doubt.
you like Justin Tucker prior to that game was probably seen as automatic as they come in the NFL.
He's been this whole year, but that was a new low. But if I'm John Harbaugh, I'm looking around and I'm like, yeah, we can't have this. Like, they play in too many close games to
Hey man,
have that bad of a kicker.
you need to have him go talk to a guru or somebody like, hey,
Yeah,
get your head back to where it needs to be because
quickly.
yeah,
Because they would have. I mean, you think about it. Last night, had he hit those 3 field goals, it's 21-21 down the stretch, and then Baltimore doesn't have to go for it on 4th and 11 or whatever it was and not get it. So, and that was really the game. So it's just all complimentary football. And yeah, I think definitely, in my opinion, right now, the Lions and the Ravens are the best teams in the NFC by a considerable margin. Or the Lions and the Eagles, excuse me. My bad.
yeah.
Put another bird team in there. Had the bird teams on my head. But yeah, those two. And that would be a fun NFC championship game. I'm not going to lie. I'd rather have it here, though.
Oh, same. I mean,
Yeah.
I still want to get back from the year that they beat us here. You know what I'm saying? So
Yeah.
it's like it
Me
would
too.
be fun to see that matchup. And I think, like you said, I don't think Lions fans should necessarily be panicking at this point, whether it's about injuries, whether it's about how the NFC is shaking out. It's one game at a time. It's continuing to trust in these coaches because I think outside of the talent that's on this team already, it's the coaching that's really helped propel them to this point. And I think that's the beauty of like seeing them have this success is that it really puts a spotlight on Aaron Glenn and Dan Campbell and Ben Johnson on like how prepared they have these guys and Dave Phipp because obviously they've had to replace Khalif. Like it puts so much emphasis on the coaching staff for the Lions.
Yeah. And if they come out here and play like a good defensive showing against the Packers on Thursday in week 14, man, you better like Aaron Glenn's got to be up there for assistant coach of the year. Like you got to might just have to write his name in there. But yeah, if y'all just your slogan, if you find yourself getting anxious this week about the 1 seed, this and that, your slogan can just be 3 letters, baby. F, T, and P. If you know, you know.
Be better. That's just all that should be on anybody's mind this week.
FTP.
So with that said, Morgan and I are actually going to get done with this video because we have to get ready for our film study video that we're going to knock out tomorrow. That'll get recorded tomorrow, be posted Wednesday morning. But yeah, definitely stay tuned for that. Also, speaking of Wednesday, live show for Pride of Detroit. Morgan, where's this going to be at again? Because I keep forgetting the name.
You're good. It's the Majestic Theater downtown, right there on Woodward. It's awesome. It's a really cool venue.
So if you haven't gotten your tickets to that, I believe it's $18 to get in. There will be free pizza. There will be some games. There will be some giveaways, including Lions tickets. So like, again, if you have ever wanted to meet any of the POD staff in person, whether it's myself and Morgan, Jeremy, Eric, Ryan, Chris will be in town. come out. This is something that I know the guys have worked extremely hard on. And to think that like earlier this year, we were saying goodbye to the podcast altogether. And fast forward to, the end of the year and we're having our first ever live show. Like amazing things are happening. So if you have the ability to get out to the Majestic Theater this Wednesday, definitely don't miss the opportunity to come hang out. It's going to be a great time. We would love to see you guys. We'd love to be able to shake your hands, meet you in person, answer your questions in person instead of having to answer them in the comment section, all of that stuff. So like always, thank you guys for your support. Hopefully we will see you on Wednesday. And like always, if you're looking for more Lions content, all you have to do is head over to prideofdetroit.com. There is new articles being uploaded all the time. I believe I saw an article already about some comments that Jamal Adams made during his first media availability. So definitely go check those things out. He had some really great things to say about the Lions organization. And like always, if you want to stay tuned to what we are doing over here on YouTube, all you have to do is hit that subscribe button, hit that notification bell. That's going to keep you locked into everything we're doing over on this side of YouTube. But with all that said, I'm Miko. He's Morgan. Thank you guys for taking the time to watch, and we'll catch you guys in the next one.